Hey Stitchers, welcome back to Handiworks. Today we're diving into the wonderful world of herringbone stitch. I'm using this lovely green linen some embroidery floss in a variety of colors, a needle, and something to help you mark your lines. I'm using this handy plastic cross-stitch mesh, but you could also use a ruler or a fabric marker. If you're using a ruler, make sure to use a fabric marker that will wash away or fade easily. You don't want those lines to be permanent. This versatile stitch is a must-have in any embroiderer's toolkit, and I'm going to show you 10 fantastic variations. Let's start with the classic herringbone stitch. Bring your needle up through the fabric at the top left dot. Then insert your needle diagonally down at the bottom right dot. Next, bring your needle up again at the bottom left dot and insert it diagonally down at the top right dot, crossing over your previous stitch. Just keep repeating this to create a zigzag pattern. Try to keep your stitches evenly spaced and at a consistent angle. This will help create a neat and tidy herringbone stitch. But hey, don't worry if it's not perfect. It's all part of the handmade charm. Now let's add some flair with the threaded herringbone stitch. After you've completed your basic herringbone, thread a contrasting color of floss onto a tapestry needle. Weave the tapestry needle over and under the diagonal stitches of the herringbone, creating a beautiful woven effect. Experiment with different colors and thread types for your threading. You can even use metallic thread or ribbon for a touch of sparkle. Next up, the double herringbone stitch. This one is simply 2 rows of herringbone stitched side by side. Start by stitching 1 row of herringbone as usual. Then, stitch the second row right next to the first, making sure the stitches interlock neatly. The double herringbone stitch creates a denser, more textured effect. It's perfect for borders, edgings, or filling in larger areas. Now let's try the tacked herringbone stitch. This variation adds a small stitch at the center of each diagonal stitch, creating a more defined and structured look. After you make a diagonal stitch, bring your needle up through the fabric at the center point and take a tiny stitch downwards. Repeat this for each diagonal stitch. The closed herringbone stitch creates a solid woven effect. Continue in this way, creating a closed overlapping pattern. The closed herringbone stitch is perfect for filling in shapes and creating solid areas of embroidery. It's also a great way to add texture and dimension to your projects. Okay, now that we've mastered the classic herringbone, let's explore some fun variations. We have the half herringbone stitch. This one creates a lighter, more open look. Instead of bringing your needle up at the top dot on the opposite side, you'll bring it up at the same side, creating a sort of half stitch effect. It's great for delicate borders or adding subtle texture. Try using a finer thread for the half herringbone stitch to create an even more delicate look. The spacing between the lines will determine the width of your herringbone stitch, so feel free to experiment. This variation adds a little loop at the end of each stitch, creating a knotted effect. The tided herringbone stitch is great for adding a touch of texture and dimension to your embroidery. It also works well for creating outlines or borders. Now let's get a bit fancy with the twisted lattice band. This one creates a beautiful woven effect. Start by stitching 2 rows of regular herringbone stitch side by side. Then, using a contrasting color, weave your needle over and under the diagonal stitches of both rows, creating a lattice pattern. It's like magic. The twisted lattice band is perfect for creating decorative bands or borders. You can experiment with different color combinations and weaving patterns to create your own unique designs. Next, we have the twisted herringbone stitch, also known as the Breton stitch. This variation adds a twist to the classic herringbone, creating a more textured and rope-like effect. To stitch it, bring your needle up through the fabric at the top left dot. The twisted herringbone stitch is a great choice for creating bold lines or adding a touch of texture to your embroidery. It also works well for outlining shapes or creating decorative borders. Finally, we have the herringbone ladder stitch. This variation creates a ladder-like effect with open spaces between the stitches. The herringbone ladder stitch is perfect for creating open, airy designs or adding a touch of delicacy to your embroidery. It also works well for creating borders or filling in larger areas. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more stitching inspiration. Happy stitching! And there you have it, 10 fantastic herringbone stitch variations. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and feel inspired to try out these stitches in your own embroidery projects. Remember to experiment with different colors, thread types, and fabric combinations to create your own unique designs.